In this video, I'm going to show you the 2 simple things you can do to make friends with anyone in any of your classes, whether that's high school classes, university, sport, whatever. Throughout all 6 years of high school, I didn't have any friends. I would talk to people in class and then I wouldn't see them outside of that. I would just go home and study and play video games and play sport. However, over the years, I've been able to build up my friendship skills. So now I have a framework that I can use to make friends with anyone. And I used this semester at university to make friends with a group of people who I only saw 10 times in total. So I went from complete strangers, not even knowing these guys' names, to now hanging out. The first thing is to be nice and be yourself. Now, you've probably heard this a million times now, so everyone says to just be yourself. But what do I actually mean by that? So to be yourself, you want to hold your own opinions. What this means is when you agree with someone, with what someone's saying, you say, yeah, I agree, and then you say something to continue the conversation. If you disagree, you say that. You say, I disagree with you. And this is where the be nice comes in. When you disagree with someone, you say it in a nice way. You don't say, you're wrong. You say, oh really, I actually think this. So with the be nice, you're not being rude to people, and you're also, another element of being nice is taking an interest in people. So you take an interest by, if someone has said something, you ask follow-up questions. And the mindset you can use around this is just try to get to know the other person. Don't come into this just trying to make friends. Have the mindset of just trying to get to know someone, and that will lead to you making friends as a byproduct. Try to remember the things that they've told you and ask follow-up questions. So if they say they're going to some event, and then the next week you see them, ask them about that thing and ask good questions. So for example, if they went to an event, you could say, how was it? Did it live up to your expectations? If they say no, then ask, oh really, why not? And just keep asking questions. Now, one issue I commonly see people do that I definitely used to do when people say be nice is that some people think that means don't have your own opinions. It doesn't. To make friends, you have to have your own opinions and you have to disagree. Can you imagine if you had a friend who agreed with you on everything? You would never be able to have any good conversations. You would never be able to get advice because they would just be a clone of you. Also, being nice doesn't mean putting yourself down. So I used to do this a lot. I used to say, oh, it's kind of being self-deprecating instead of being humble. There's a difference between those 2 things. Being humble is really just listening to them and acknowledging that they have insight that you can learn from. Being self-deprecating is just constantly saying, oh no, I'm always, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm stupid, stuff like that. That is not being nice. So don't get those 2 things confused. Being nice really just means listening to them. So number 2 is put in effort. So if you be nice and be yourself and put in effort, these 2 things will mean that you will be able to make friends with anyone in your class. Now, what do I mean by putting in an effort? This really just means that you have to consistently contact this person to remind you of them. So every time you see them in class, you need to talk to them. You can't go a whole lesson without talking to them. If you can, try to see them after class. So just hang around with them and talk to them a bit after class. You can also text them, so try to get their socials. And don't spam text them. Texting is overused for a lot of people, I think. A good way to know if it's good to text someone, if they had an event, you can ask them how that thing went. But that's probably the main thing I would text someone about, is really just asking how something went. But don't overdo it. Don't send them reels yet, because you're not at that stage. When you're in a class, you're often there to learn, right? Well, actually, I would argue that in a lot of classes, university, high school, the learning is mostly done at home. Being in class is the best opportunity to socialize. So I would actually encourage you, when you're in class, without distracting the other person, like if they want to do work, let them do work. But if they want to talk, then you should talk to them, because you can always do the work at home, but you can't talk to them at home. And this is coming from someone who I study a lot. I got really good grades, but I didn't do this enough in high school. This is probably one of the reasons why I didn't have any friends, was because I just studied the whole lesson. And then I would only have the lunch breaks to talk to people. And then I was only talking to just a few people and not all the 100 people that I had across all my classes. I was only talking to 6 people at lunch breaks. So you can see why I missed out on a huge opportunity by not talking to people in class. The only thing is though, you have to actually do that work at some point. So don't procrastinate. If you really think that you're not the type of person who's able to catch up on work at home, then you probably have to just do that work in class. Now, don't click off yet, because by doing these 2 things, you'll become a lot closer to this person and they'll probably want to be friends with you. But how do you actually go from them wanting to be friends with you to actually hanging out outside of class? You do this by slowly building up to a full hangout session. So you start with just talking to them after class. Once you do that a few times, you build up to texting. So this is what I was saying before. If they said they're going to do something, then ask how it went. This can be homework, it can be some event they went to, like a concert, whatever. Once you've done this, the next build up is to, after class, you want to ask them to hang out. So this is different to just chatting to them after class. This is like, if it's at school, ask if they want to hang out after school. This is where it's important to know what they like and to establish some common interests. If you guys both like a certain sport, then you can invite them to go play that sport after you've done that thing. If they like video games, see if they want to do that. So you do this after you've done an activity with them, after you've done the class, and you just trying to continue that hangout. This is a milder step than asking them to hang out when you're not already hanging out, like going out, getting ready, and going to hang out with this person at an organized time. So yeah, the last step, you just invite them over text or in person to organize something at an individual time. And this is the final step. You really just inviting someone to hang out. Once you can do this, I think you can officially say that you're friends. And then you just keep doing this. You keep doing all these steps. You talk during class, you talk after class, you text them, you hang out after class, and you organize hangouts on their own. You do all those 4 things and you're friends. Now, what do you do if you're doing these things and they're not interested? So you ask them to hang out after class and they're just not interested. There's 3 reasons why they might not be interested. Number 1 is they're actually just busy. So if they don't want to hang out after class, maybe they actually just have a lot of work to catch up on. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that you're not close enough yet. So maybe you've gone too fast. And this is where you just go back to the step before. So if you ask them to hang out after class and they weren't ready for that, then stick to just talking to them after class and then maybe at break if it's at school. But don't ask them to go and do something afterwards. And just keep doing that for a couple more weeks. And then eventually, once you feel like you've gotten a bit closer, then you can ask again. Another reason could be that they don't want to do the activity you're proposing. So say you have asked them if they want to go play golf, for example. If they're too poor to play golf, or if they just don't like it, then they're going to say no, even if they don't have anything against you personally. They might want to hang out, but they just might want to do something else. They're probably going to be likely to ask you to do something else instead. A good way you can increase the chance of this is just by saying, hey, we can do something else if we want. I don't really care what we do. And that way they won't be worried about hurting your feelings by asking you to do something else. Now, when I say that you can just say, oh, we can just do whatever activity, you still want to propose an activity. You don't want to just say, do you want to hang out? It's a lot better to say, do you want to do this? Or we can do something else. I'm not really set on it. Because it's a lot easier for someone to answer if they know roughly what you're going to do. When you just say, can we hang out? There's such a wide range of possibilities of what that could be. And you want to narrow that down so make it easier for them to say yes or no. If you've worked out that they're not busy, that they'd enjoy the activity you're proposing, or you've just said, we can just do whatever, and you've done this a couple times now, so you've waited long enough, you're sure that you would have had enough time to be friends. If it's none of those 3 things, then it's probably just that you and that person aren't actually aligned well enough to be friends. And that's totally fine. You don't have to make friends with everyone. And it's better to be friends with people who you're actually aligned with and would like spending time around and would build each other up than being friends with someone who you are just not going to get along with that well to begin with. because it's not going to lead to a lasting friendship. It's just going to be a short one, and it's not going to be high quality. You're not going to be able to have very good conversations. I just made a whole video on whether you should be friends with someone who you're not really sure if you like, or if it's better to just be alone. So if you think that applies to you, then you can check it out now.